Okay, ejectors. So, people always want to know about ejectors. I always find this part interesting. I think it's just because it's something we don't see and use very often. And I have ejectors, and I still don't use them very often. They have an application in some places, and I just don't find them to be that useful to me. We'll go through. There's a bunch of coursework on ejectors. Yeah. No, there's PowerPoint slide presentation on ejectors. It actually has some good information, but my ejectors that I have are all-inch intakes, which is pretty common in what we do, and all 1.5 outputs. So it always comes in here and goes out the big side. There are some, and I do have some somewhere, but not here, that have 1.5 in and 1.5 out. They do make these in different sizes. You can get these for 2.5. I have a foot valve on mine because it keeps me from losing water when it starts flowing in before it manages to get back up. In theory, you don't actually have to have that, but you'll have to have water on both sides and get it flowing so you don't lose water. Much easier if you just have the foot valve attached. Yeah, it'll restrict the flow a little bit, but you're talking about an ejector here. We're not picking up massive amounts of water. If I'm putting 20 gallons a minute in, I'm getting 40 out. That's not that much water that you're sucking up through this guy. If you need higher flows than that, you need a bigger ejector. The standard is standard. I don't know. What is typical that I've seen is for every gallon you put into it, you get 2 out after you get it going. That's fairly typical in the ones that we have and that we use. You can get them with a different pickup rate though. You can get ejectors that will, for every gallon in, you pick up 3. So those do exist. They tend to be bigger and in like 2.5, which makes them not particularly useful to us because you have to flow higher flow into it to pick up that higher flow out. Another one, it's really the same. This one just didn't need an adapter on the end. Inch going in, 1.5 going out. There's another one identical to it there. Every one of these is different, and they have a sweet spot in pressure that you have to look at, and you got to experiment with yours. So you go get a couple of folded tanks and you start playing with your ejectors, and you make marks on the side of your folded tank, and you can start to calculate how much volume you're moving, and you find that sweet spot for pressure. And then if you're doing an off a bridge type of pickup with an ejector, you can calculate for head pressure. Once the pressure hits your ejector is the pressure you're going to be at. You're still going to have to overcome that head pressure coming back up. But yeah, there's a sweet spot, and you got to get to know the ejector you have. You can't really establish a pattern without doing that. I'm not that skookum on all of the details of it. One thing I do use these things for is I'll take I'll get it going, and then I'll take the foot valve off. I'll get it flowing water, take the foot valve off, and it'll suck up and flow dirty water really well. So if you're cleaning out a really nasty, dirty, pond or pit of water, or like the wash rack at the station, I'll flow water into it. I'll have a discharge line going out, and I'll drop that puppy in there, and it'll suck up all that goo and nastiness, and it'll pull decent sized rocks and gunk that I wouldn't want to try and pump out by sucking it out with a pump. So there's probably the main reason, or the main thing I've done with them. Also, I'll use them I'll set up a pump site, and we will pump water out to a pond that I can't drive out to and bring it back to a tank that's sitting there, and that can work pretty well. Don't use them very often though.